Hello there, everybody. This is Alex from Hardcore Guides, being my guide for Dead Space on Impossible difficulty. Today we're doing Chapter 2, entitled Intensive Care. This is going to be the medical side of the Ishimura, and this one's actually a pretty fun level, in my opinion. One of my definite favorites, for sure. Kind of much like how Bioshock has, Medical Pavilion being one of my favorite levels, too. And that's another thing that I like about Dead Space, is it kind of gives me that Bioshock feel. For those that have played Bioshock and kind of understand what I'm getting at, doesn't it just, in a way, just kind of feel a little bit like Bioshock, or at least represent, or seem like it has some influences from it, maybe, possibly, I don't know. Anyway, so now we finally get our hands on the Kinesis, and nothing's really going to happen right now, besides just getting to the next destination. So, before that, I want to go and explain something that I didn't explain in the first video, but I think I might have talked about, but not too properly. And that was the different types of guns. And something that I've kind of come to notice about Dead Space, and especially Dead Space Remake, is that specific guns have specific utilities against certain enemies. So, I did learn some of the names of the enemies. I think it's called, Swarmers was correct. Lurkers are the little babies. And then I think it's Slashers are like the regular ones. And then you have like the Super Slashers, and then you have, the Spitters, and they're relatively common-ish names, like Brutes and what have you. So we'll call them as, we see them, of course. But to kind of go into explaining the different types of guns, so from what I've come to notice is that when it comes to Lurkers, the babies, / the Leapers, the Force Gun is really good, especially against the Lurkers. The Force Gun is really good. And then you have the Guardians, who are the enemies that are inside that wall. They have the tentacles, and if you try to go past them, they decapitate you instantly, and they're just a pain in the ass. Something that I learned, I did in this playthrough, was I used the Force Gun secondary fire to take out the arms, and that kind of worked for a bit. Something else I learned recently was Flamethrower Firewall. The secondary shot from the Flamethrower works wonders against the Guardians. I didn't try it out in Dead Space 1, the original one yet, but it did do it in the remake, so I assume it kind of carries over about the same thing, most likely. And from what I've gathered from that information, using the secondary fire from the Flamethrower actually works pretty well. I've never really used the Flamethrower that much in Dead Space, but I'm now starting to kind of have more respect for it. However, something that is both cool and a deterrent for using the Flamethrower most of the time is the fact that you cannot use it in zero oxygen areas. So areas that do not have oxygen, of course, fire cannot exist without oxygen. So therefore, in all logic, it makes sense. And that's something that's really damn cool that this game decided to do. And I think that's neat. I think that's really awesome. It just kind of sucks when you're trying to use a flamethrower, you're trying to main that as a weapon, and then you go out into an area with no air, and it's like, oh, fudge, I can't use my flamethrower now all of a sudden because, actual logic. Makes sense. I love Dead Space. I cannot explain this enough, but I love this game. So, next little area, we're going to have to deal with, of course, slashers like normal. For the most part, it's just nothing but slashers throughout this entire room. I think there's 3 to 4 of these guys that spawn up here, and what I recommend doing is running to either the left or the right side where these bridges are, quote-unquote. That way you can kind of get more of a better view on them, because if you can kind of make it to where enemies get grouped up into one little area and you can actually see them better, you'll have a better chance at least dealing with them. Another thing to keep in mind is, for those that don't know, I mean, if you're playing Impossible mode, you probably know by now. I kind of screwed up the grab there. But if you use Kinesis to grab an enemy's, especially a slasher's, his arm, if you were to grab his arm and get that, the spike on the arm, you could actually throw that at an enemy and then typically impale them. So, well, at least you do damage, and sometimes you impale. It's really weird and very bizarre for Impossible mode. I'm not sure if it ever works at the time, especially in Dead Space 1, because sometimes it seems like it works, and sometimes it seems like it doesn't. Of course, in the remake, they did add spikes that you can pick up and throw around, which carried over from, Dead Space 2, because I think Dead Space 2 added those. But Dead Space 1, you should be able to pick up arms and throw them back. If it doesn't kill, if it doesn't impale, then at the very least, you can do some damage if you need to. So once you come down here, that's when these crawler ones are going to spawn. There's 2 of them. So just shoot them in the arms or, whatever body part you prefer shooting them at. And another thing to keep in mind, too, is you have a stasis module down here as well. So feel free to start using the stasis module as much as you want. And do not forget that stasis is there. That way, if you ever happen to use the stasis outside of, this area specifically, and you need stasis again, just come on back and grab it. Because typically, a lot of the time, unlike, with Bioshock, enemies don't typically respawn. I mean, sometimes it seems like they kind of do. But a lot of the time, you can kind of just go back to an area and then, for the most part, just be fine. And that's where, Dead Space kind of makes it just a tad bit easier to handle, is because a lot of the time the enemies that spawn are the ones that are just going to just do that. They're just going to spawn. So, yeah. Don't forget, like I said, you have stasis down here, so just, freely use it willy-nilly. These ones with the pants, I think these are the ones that are called the slashers, I believe. If I'm not mistaken. There's not too many of them. They mostly come from, like, the bathroom area. If you want to stand at a place that's pretty safe, I'd say stand, like, near the elevator to kind of get a better view of, like, both sides of yourself from, like, the left and the right, because they kind of come from both areas. Don't try to go into the bathroom, because that might be kind of dangerous. And if you want to save on ammo, stasis melee works out pretty well. I'd always recommend using stomp. That's always my preferred method of melee, because at least then when I'm, stomping them, I'm not going to lose the item that could spawn out of them when I kill them. Behind this bookshelf, you can actually kinesis and grab it. And the remake, if you go through here on New Game Plus, you can find a marker, one of the markers that you can pick up, which is funny because there's one literally right there too, so that might have actually just been a reference to it. I never really went back and looked myself, but I feel like the markers that do appear in New Game Plus for Remake probably do actually appear in Dead Space 1, maybe. So that'd be kind of an interesting little touch. I haven't actually beaten New Game Plus on Dead Space because my file got corrupted, and I was very pissed off. So, yeah. Look, I want to say, I love the Dead Space remake. It is so good. It is so worth the play. It is so worth it. I cannot express this enough, and I'm so excited for a potential Dead Space 2 remake. Hell, I'm actually excited for Metroid Prime 2 to get remastered as well, because we got remastered for Metroid Prime 1, and I'm really hoping to see 2 and 3. And same thing with Dead Space. I wouldn't mind seeing Dead Space 3 remake. I mean, it could be better. I don't know. It's not like the game was, incredibly bad. I just think that it was just a little jarring. It's just a little weird. It's a fun game for what it's worth. I just wish I had local co-op as well. That would have been nice. But too bad we didn't get that, so, it is what it is. Dead Space 3 is not that bad. There's no reason to hate on it, necessarily. It has problems, and of course it has problems with the EA and all that other stuff, but that's to me, that's kind of outside the game at that point. It doesn't affect too much of the game for me to not want to play it. And then the crouch option, that's such a weird thing they added, was the whole being able to crouch thing. That was weird. So anyway, these are the first time we get to fight with the lurkers, and I'm just going to go ahead and just stasis, and then of course, stomp the yard on them. That way I can save on ammo. The best way to take them out, typically, of course, is just to shoot them in the tentacles for that. Because, I like to keep everybody in mind in terms of these guys. And as you see right there, I got really lucky because he was going for a grab attack. That's another thing, too, I want to mention real fast. If a lurker does grab you and you have to mash X, I think you lose the same amount of health no matter what. No matter how fast you mash. I don't think it matters. But the thing is, that's a pretty damn good attack to have. Not only do they just pretty much just not have, ranged attack on you, and you kind of know where they're at. But the second thing, of course, oh yeah, right there, that's when my frame rate started tanking heavily on this game. It just started crashing. Yeah, shooting them in the tentacles is the best way. You don't want to shoot them in their regular body. You can chop out their arms from the regular body, but it just seems to be too tanky to even bother with. So I'd recommend shooting the tentacles if you get the chance. So, yeah, if they grab you, that's not a death sentence, typically. Because once they grab you, you can just keep mashing X, and then, Isaac throws them on the ground just like a kick. Now, in normal or easy, it would usually be an instant kill. But we're on impossible mode, so it takes about 2 kicks for that to actually effectively work. So, and if you want to get a lurker to grab you, say for maybe an achievement or something, because there is one of those. If you're looking to try to get the achievement to get a lurker to grab you, just run up to them. That's it. They'll typically, if you're too close, they'll most of the time run up to you. And another thing too is, of course, use stasis on the lurkers, because of course you're gonna have a stasis module up here that you can use, and then we can also use it on them. Also, 8 Dead Space just great when it sometimes just doesn't work. That's the thing that typically just pisses me off about the games a lot of the time, is when they just decide to just not work at all. And you can see I stasised the first guy coming down the stairs, just missed. Then I go to stasis the other guy, and I physically tried to stasis him, but then that one misses. And it's come on, man. So, very typical Dead Space-like stuff. And it's also great knowing that the remake has made some of it worse, actually. I've noticed. They actually have really hard aim assist. You can turn it off, I think, but even then still, it's just really damn hard. In terms of the aim assist is what I'm saying. Like, they really want you to aim at whoever the hell they want you to aim at, that's for sure. This is off topic, but just something I want to talk about is, I just went out and got some Chick-fil-A. It's been like years since I've had it. It's pretty good. I know it's just off topic, but like my constantly doing commentary and then having like, you know, after eating just kind of sucks because then it makes me more thirsty. And I want to take a sip, but I don't want to do it because this is, you know, a guide and I want to be professional. But I mean, it's not like it really matters, I guess, but we'll see what happens. And then something else that's kind of off topic since we have the time, I guess I can talk about real fast, even though I said I should be professional. Oh yeah, node room. Yeah, you always want to have like at least one node on hand. Always try to have one node on hand just in case. Even if you don't need a node room door, just have one. You never know what's going to come in handy. You never know where you're going to need ammo or whatever new supplies. These are typically worth it, and sometimes you get your money back from it anyway, so it's not really that bad of a deal. And then I'm going to go upgrade, and you guys can see what that is. Yeah, the other thing I want to talk about is on my Let's Play channel, which you might be able to find in my description of these videos. I think I had that placed. Not sure. I need to check on that. But if I do have it, actually, I do need to check on some things later because I found out that one of my links doesn't work for my finding of my art pages and stuff. Yeah, yikes. So I need to change that back too, maybe. Yeah. What are they called again? Leapers? Yeah, Leapers are going to spawn. There's like 2 of them. Just, you know, shoot them in the arms. I always go for the arms. That's my own preference. I never really go for the tail, like I said before in the last video. Mainly because I feel like it's just too tanky of a spot to actually attack. So, these 2 are not that bad. And plus, we have a stasis that you can go back to if you need it. But yeah, on my Let's Play channel, I recently finished South Park The Fractured Butthole. And, you know, it was fun for a bit. But then it got a little bit annoying with being too grindy. And the thing I want to talk about is whether or not I'm going to actually ever do South Park The Fractured Butthole on this channel. Whether it be Mastermind or Diabolic, because those are 2 technical different difficulties. And I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever do it. I have thought about it, but we'll see what the future holds. We'll see what happens. And one other thing I want to talk about real fast, and this is just kind of correlated with my videos, is, well, one, I should make a channel trailer at this point to kind of like describe what I do on YouTube. But the quote-unquote rules of my YouTube, the way I set them for myself is, for those that are curious, will I ever do Dead Space 2? I would love to do Dead Space 2 on Zealot at some point. And the thing is, I don't want to do Dead Space 2 like right after this. And the reason being is because I have like my own rule where I don't allow myself to do the same franchise over and over and over again, because I don't want to have to just rely on that one specific franchise the entire time, and then people get kind of bored of just seeing just that. So I try to limit myself between 2 games, 2 to 3 games in between like the same franchise. So like I just did God of War 2, and now I'm doing Dead Space. So whatever guide comes next and whatever potential guide after that would be the minimum limit for me to come back and do like Chains of Olympus or something, you know. So that's what I'm trying to say. Actually, I might mute my mic just real quick. Okay, and we're back. Granted, I could have probably paused the video and just paused the recording, but I'm done. I'll probably cut out the mic noise though, because it's very annoying. Alright, where are we at? Okay, yeah. We're finally outside. No oxygen. There should be an... Okay, no, that's just the remake I'm thinking of. I was going to say, there should be an oxygen thing around here somewhere. You can pick them up, but... It ain't a big deal. Also, something I may have mentioned before, and I'll mention it again, or I might not have mentioned it before or not. There are actual cheats that you can use in Dead Space 1 that that goes into, like, once per save file. However, there are cheats that you can use that continue, no matter if you're on first playthrough or not. And those 2 cheats that will continue, and disregarding whatever playthrough, if you're doing a plus or whatever, is you can refill your stasis whenever you feel like it. Yes, for free, and you can refill your oxygen. And to refill stasis, I think it's you pause the game, and then it's like square, triangle, square, square, triangle, I think. And then for oxygen, I forget what the button combination is for that, but you'll have to look it up. But in a playthrough, in a new playthrough, a completely new game playthrough, you can start off the game and you can actually add multiple amounts of credits and multiple power nodes if you want to. So that way you can have an easier chance at, beating Dead Space 1 on Impossible mode if you're going for that. And you don't need to do it, but you can do it. If that helps you, you can do it. The benefit of it is you don't get locked out of any trophies or anything like that. So don't worry about that. I, however, decided not to do it. I don't think you get locked out of trophies. I don't think so. But don't quote me on that, actually. I should say that. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think you can. Yeah, as you see right there, one leaper appears. There should be two, I think. There should be two of them in here. And I just throw some, explosive canisters at them. There should be two. Just waiting to see what the hell they're around. I'm running out of room here. That's why I don't really care for oxygen much. But yeah, you can use those cheats to kind of help you get maybe like an edge in. And sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes it's kind of annoying when you're out just like in, the dead of space and you can't breathe for like the past 5 minutes. So, yeah. I would say I'd probably got lucky with this one, but if you can possibly maneuver the leaper to land on a platform like this, basically, like, you want to try to get him to land right in front of your platform that you're standing on. That way, he can get stuck, and then you can get a free, easy, nice kill with that. If not, of course, you have canisters you can throw around. And if they get too close to you and you want to get away, just, zero gravity way across the room, grab a canister, throw it at him. 2 should do the trick, so. I don't know why an explosive canister would take 2 shots to take down a whole damn leaper, but, this game has some weird... It's got some weird stuff to it sometimes. But for the most part, you can, a lot of the time, maneuver enemies to kind of do what you want them to do. It doesn't work every time. It doesn't work 100%, but there are opportunities where you can get away with kind of making enemies go where you want them to go. And that's something to try to keep in mind, too. One of the things that I can't exactly describe the best because it's kind of hard to put into words. There's a maneuver that you can do where if a slasher is about to attack you, I usually just kind of like run up to them and like run back like real quick. Like I flick the controller, and sometimes that kind of works. But I'm not going to say that's foolproof. I'm not going to lie and say like, yeah, that's definitely a thing that I have absolute proof of. So don't take that to heart. Don't take any of that advice to heart. That's not good advice. The thing I want to talk about mainly is that sometimes you can kind of like back up right before an enemy hits you or dodge to the left or right, and sometimes you can kind of get away with not getting hit. And yes, I saw those line wrecks right there. I did see them. And I'm pretty sure I saw them in my playthrough, but I didn't have the room for them anyway, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, once you come back, here, you're going to have to deal with leapers and slashers again. And of course, the first, slasher you can see spawn literally from the vent. If you can catch them from the vent, that's good. However, I wouldn't recommend throwing things at them while they're popping out of the vent because they might still have iframes on them. At least that happened in the remake when I was playing that, when I grabbed a spike thing to kind of, stick them with, an object to impale them with. One of them spawned from the damn ceiling and then came down and hit me. Alright, so this is also, I think, the first time I get to see swarmers. And the thing with swarmers is if they all attack you at once, they will drain your health by like leaps and bounds of just amounts of health that you'll lose. If 1 or 2 of them attach to you, that's fine. You barely lose any health. The thing is, you don't want them to ever attach to you at all when they're in big groups. If they're in small little groups and are attacking you once at, one by one, it's not a big deal. But altogether, they will drain your health. It's strange how it does that. I don't know. Their weakness is mainly just flamethrower. Flamethrower works really well against them if you want to run flamethrower. That's always a good thing to use. Mainly because they typically die in like one shot and the flame kind of sticks around long enough to actually, take them down. So that's something to keep in mind if you're curious. And on top of that, like as you saw that I did there, of course, I went out of my way and got some, I had a stasis module nearby and just decided to say, screw it. I'm going to use stasis and then just stomp them. It might not be the most safest method because some of them might attach to you, but it works. It did work in that instant. So if you happen to come across some swarmers and you just cannot get by them, then stasis is your friend if you don't have a flamethrower. Even if you don't have a stasis around, I'd recommend using it. But if you happen to come across swarmers and you're worried about them, then go into like another room. Like go in the room before that you got there. Basically, go back where you came from and try to find like a stasis module if you can. Because typically swarmers cannot follow you into rooms, I don't believe. They shouldn't be able to. I've never had an opportunity where they just, for some reason, just out of nowhere came and attacked me from like a room or two ahead of where I was. So, all right. Speaking of rooms, this one's going to be dangerous, and I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. So in this room is going to be a bunch of enemies that should spawn, I think, instantly or after we put in the key. I'll have to wait and see. But back in this room, this is where I'm going to hunker down at. And I like this room specifically because it has like a chokehold that I can see. There is, of course, a vent right above me. If you can get lucky with these guys and get them to kind of spawn together, then you can always just run out there and just stomp them to death. Although I didn't want to take that chance because there's going to be slashers that are going to appear very soon. So I'm trying to stick in this room and not try to run out of this room as best as I can. Because it's just kind of too dangerous out there. And if you happen to hear like the vent above you break, that's a good sign that, you should definitely, look behind you and take out, whatever is coming behind you. But before you do the thing with the power node, just, run into that room and take out the lurkers. Or, take them out wherever you feel, confident with taking them out at. Because once you put this little battery in, that's when I think the slashers should spawn, if I'm not mistaken. I might be thinking of like a different part that we come into, because... Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of a different part then. God damn it. Alright. I lied. I didn't mean to lie, I just thought it was... oh well. But either way, that room that I was talking about, like once you get to that area where you have to fight slashers again, not necessarily like the regenerator, which I think I actually do anyway. Yeah, I think when I'm fighting the regenerator, I think I do that, actually. I think I come back to there and I just use that room as coverage. That's a pretty good room to kind of like hold up in and get some chokehold, if you're confident with your skills in taking out enemies before they can actually get to you. And in this very room, there should only be just the 2 slashers and just the 1 lurker. And try not to run too far down the hallway. Oh, there's a crawler, but you can just shoot them with anything you can get your hands on, pretty much. Because a lot of the time, there's times where, like, whenever they break, like, a vent, you can actually pick up the fan and throw it back at them, and that usually does, like, a pretty good chop, so... Okay, there was more slashers than I thought there was. And, of course, there's a node door right next to me, so I take that because, keep a node on hand at all times. Every time that you go to the store and you don't have a node, just try to buy one. And if you're looking for anything to sell, I'd always say, like, sell, like, your secondary ammo. Or just whatever ammo you just happen to have carried on hand. If that doesn't work, then you can always sell your health if you really, really want to. But I tried not, selling health too much. Just saying. Stasis packs you can sell because you can always regenerate that with the cheat code. If you were willing to take that chance. Or take that opportunity to use a stasis, cheat code if you wanted to. I'm not going to look at you any different, I promise. Because I did the same shit too. And I didn't do it in this playthrough because I wanted to make this as legit as I possibly could to make it, much more user-friendly toward everybody. Try to be a little bit more inclusive to everybody. Of course, granted, that also does happen to exclude people that use the cheat code, which I do apologize. But I will tell you right now, it works wonders, and it's not game-breaking necessarily, but it definitely does help a lot. It saves you a lot of money, too. It definitely saves you a lot of money, especially if you were to get the cheat code for having extra credits and then, having extra nodes too. That will definitely save you in the long run on Possible Mode. It's not going to completely 100% make you safe because like the Leviathan's going to show up later and that's going to be a pain in the ass to deal with. But we'll go over him when we get there. And once we do get there, I'm going to explain some things a little bit differently too because I kind of took the somewhat wrong approach at fighting it, so I will have to go over that. Coming up next is going to be our first introduction of an Infector. And Infectors, of course, for those that don't know, are the types of necromorphs that pretty much just take dead bodies and turn them into super slashers. These ones are much stronger, and they're a little bit more darker in color than the regular, like, brownish ones. And these ones are much more stronger. Usually, like, the darker variants of Necromorphs tend to be a lot more tankier than just, like, the regular run-of-the-mill colored ones. So, that's something to kind of keep in mind, too. Of course, go for the legs. That's my best advice, is just go for the legs. Just chop off the legs as fast as you possibly can, because if they run toward you and they slash at you, you will probably die instantly at this point in time. With the amount of health that I have, and the suit that I have, like even level 2 suit, I still die instantly just by a super slasher. So, one sec. Alright. I'm looking around for like anything that could possibly become of use, but pretty much nothing. So, what I would recommend doing is stand like back here near this table, and then just stasis, and try to stasis both. Aim for, if you can, try to like go for Pierce. Aim for the, the super slasher, and then at the same time, try to hit the infector. If he happens to try to infect somebody else, just shoot at him while he's infecting, and then eventually he'll just fudge off. He got really lucky right there and basically got another one, but that's okay. I have plenty of stasis to kind of go around, but if you don't want the infector to go to the next body, then the first thing that you should do is take down the super slasher and knock off his legs. And if the infector is your main worry, then beeline for the infector and then try to stasis it. If you don't have stasis, that's fine too. You just shoot the shit out of him. He'll eventually pop off. Aim for the wings, because usually sometimes you can kind of like get a wing to chop off. Unless that's just the remake one I'm thinking of. I could be getting them mixed up now. But yeah, I don't think you can actually chop off limbs from the infectors. If anybody knows, let me know in the comments, because I'm not... I feel like you can, but like my brain's telling me that you can't. And I'm supposed to be the guy giving a guide, but then again, this is my type of guide, so... if my guide doesn't help you, then there's plenty of other guides out there, and I can always recommend people for people that need better guides. Just, feel free to ask if need be. But, yeah, so once you come in this room, don't be surprised. There's going to be, of course, another super slasher that's going to appear. And then, of course, take out his legs. I think he appears in the same spot. He spawns in the same spot every time. At the very least, he should. And I decided to not waste too much ammo on him. And just, plow him with stasis. Because, again, around this area, you can find stasis. And, of course, I happen to have a stasis pack on hand. So, why not? But as you can tell, I'm really lenient when it comes to stasis packs. I don't really care too much about having them or not. I always say try to keep one just in case. But if you don't have stasis and you need it bad, yeah, use it. Just use it. It's there for you to use. Being too frugal with like your items can sometimes be kind of bad. It's always good to have health, but the trick to like not needing to use health, of course, is to not get hit. And that's just something that kind of comes with, patience and time. Granted, for those that are probably playing on impossible mode by now, you probably have that. You probably have the skill and the patience and the time to kind of, learn your way and eventually make it to where you don't get hit. The main thing in beating Dead Space is, of course, knowledge, and I keep bringing that up, but yeah. Anyway, that's the end of the chapter. I'll see you guys for Chapter 3. So, as always, take care, everybody.